Hello, everyone. This might be a terrible idea, but hey, we're doing it anyway. Welcome to the first episode of the new Home Turf podcast. Unfortunately, I don't have a little catchy little jingle for it or anything yet. That will probably come later. We'll see. But let me just gonna talk a bit about what I really want to do with this podcast. What my plan is. I plan on doing basically a lot of like political updates and commentary and stuff, just like on news happening in the world. But also, not only that, but like some nerd culture and gaming updates, just general news for games. I'm really into Marvel, so there will probably be a lot of that. And especially, it is also like pretty just what's happening with Marvel, pretty politically interesting, and there's a lot worth talking about, past, present, and future. And I'm also going to be doing just general Christian news, as well as specific to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If there's any new news on apocryphal writings or biblical manuscripts, I'll probably be talking about that as well. And anyway, before I really do any commentary on current events, I think it would be useful to really explain kind of what my political views are and why they are the way that they are. And unfortunately, all of that has to be explained in the context of Donald Trump. I'm not a Trump. I'm not an always Trumper. I'm not a never Trumper. It really depends on the issue, but for better or for worse, and probably for better and for worst, honestly, there really is no one like Donald Trump. I mean, no one else besides him has really manifested themselves directly into the center of American politics. He kind of just seemed to wake up one day in 2015. He's like, you know what? American politics is all about me now. And that it was. Is all the spotlights are going to be on me, and I'm going to yell at everyone controlling the spotlights until they focus on me. And it worked. It's pretty mind-blowing. So first we'll start with a thing I think he's doing really well on. He is doing really well with immigration. I mean, the border is very, very secure now. It literally, day one of him being in office, before he even passed any legislation, the illegal entry into the country slowed to a trickle just by him being there. I mean, just because he stopped it pretty well in his first term. Then Joe Biden came in, and then the floodgates just opened. And then Donald Trump came back, and they closed tight again. And then he ramped up ICE, and the borders closed, and even opened the other direction. A lot of people were self-deporting, which is pretty awesome. There was a little bit of issue I had with the way he handled Kelmar Obrego Garcia. Don't get me wrong, he should be out of the country. And the fact that federal judges want him in the country so badly is stupid. It's just absolutely stupid. But it would have been what he should have done. He should have been like, all right, we'll fly him back, give him the due process, find him guilty, and we'll send him back. It would have been a lot easier, and I think, and it would have avoided a lot of the flack, wouldn't have given the left another talking point. But other than that, he has done pretty great. And the only reason they should have done that is just to get him out of the country faster and move on with their lives. Now let's talk about. Now there's another thing I have a really big beef with Donald Trump, and that is RFK Jr. I have no idea why in the world Donald Trump would choose RFK Jr. to be his to head the what was it, the okay. Now let's talk about something that I really don't like about the Trump administration, and that is RFK Jr. I really have no idea what Trump was thinking in appointing him to his cabinet, other than to win some of the independent and maybe some of the Democrat votes. It really has something that Ben Shapiro said was that he's a really big stain on the Trump administration, and I full heartedly agree with that. Because first of all, you have RFK Jr. oversaw an FDA approval of the abortion pill. Let me pull up that article. But while I'm pulling that up, it's honestly, and Trump has said like he was pretty open to abortion. Like if I remember correctly, he wasn't super like anti-abortion, which is kind of a problem. I'm not really a fan of that. Oh, hold on, I got it right here. Okay. Okay, yeah, here it is. According to Fox, no, it was NPR actually. Hold on. Okay. According to NPR, on October 2nd, 2025, federal officials have approved another generic version of the abortion pill, a regulatory formality that quickly triggered pushback from anti-abortion groups and politicians aligned with the Trump administration. As it continues, it says later on in the article, the criticism comes as Republican President Donald Trump's top health officials, including Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., face growing pressure from abortion opponents to reevaluate mifepristone, which was approved 25 years ago and has repeatedly been deemed safe and effective by FDA scientists. And that happened. It goes on to later say that is partially underneath RFK. Now, the thing is, they say, oh, it's safe. It's not safe. If it kills a baby, it's not safe because it kills a human being. That's the thing. Also, the whole thing about the Tylenol causing autism, it's stupid. It's stupid. Donald Trump should not have listened to him. Now, I'm not saying it's not a thing worth looking into. I did see there is a correlation. I have heard of graphs about a correlation. But I have also read that the correlation is due to fevers. When women are pregnant, they often get fevers and take Tylenol to reduce those fevers. And fevers during pregnancy can also cause autism, or at least it's correlated with autism. So it's likely that is the reason for the correlation. Now, if RFK had said we've seen a correlation, we're going to look into it, that would not be as bothersome to me. But he totally jumped the gun. He's like, vaccines cause autism and it's proven. And then later on he came and said, well, actually, it's not proven. The science was not fully there, but we know it causes it, so we're going to keep looking for that. Which seems to me that they're looking for a confirmation bias rather than looking for actual evidence, which that is the whole slew of red flags. And he's also said some things about vaccines. There's also be a case. There is, to be fair, a case to be made for seed oils and red dye 40, but I really haven't seen RFK like really speak about those. I've seen him talk about vaccines and autism and Tylenol, and a lot of his supporters, like I know I know Glenn Beck, who was kind of a big fan of what RFK is doing the Maha movement. He's been saying a lot about like seed oils and Red 40, but I haven't heard the man himself talk about that. I haven't heard RFK make a big deal about these. And which is the ones that I can see having the biggest case for them. I've heard a lot of things like seed oils, the chemicals they use to separate are pretty toxic, and I've heard some sketchy stuff about Red 40. I need to look into that more, but those seem like a better focus than on Tylenol. Now, here's another thing that Donald Trump has done a really good job on: tax cuts and reduction in regulation. This is amazing. This is how you fuel innovation. Innovation is fueled by the government getting out of the way, and it's really, and just making it easier for Americans to start their own business. That's part of innovation. You look at say California, where it's impossible to have any insurance company, like all the fire insurance companies are leaving because they put so many regulations that you can't even charge a profitable amount. Or you look at or when people were trying to sell their homes to get some money because they literally lost everything in a fire, then people were like, okay, I'll buy your property for a significantly reduced price, and the people were like, yes, please do it, take this off my hands, I need money. And then Gavin Newsom comes in, he's like, nope, you can't price gouge like that, nope. It's things almost as a general rule get worse when the government intervenes, and as a general rule they get better when the government steps back. Now, which kind of brings me into the next point, which is tariffs. The tariffs, I have really mixed feelings. The legacy media made it seem like that there was just going to be like this big fallout, this economic like crash that was going to happen because of that. And to some degree, I listened to Ben Shapiro a lot. To some degree, Ben Shapiro was kind of worried about that too, for reasons that I feel were somewhat ungrounded. I mean, he was showing that like a lot of like drops in the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones index, which I really don't think that those are good indicators of how the economy is doing as far as like for the individual consumer. Because the thing is, that's not like a reflection of how the company is doing. That's a reflection of like, that's not the company itself so much. That's more of just investors. Like, there's like people pulling out their money. They're selling as it goes down, and which is not how you make money. Like, it's literally just people selling and buying based on emotion, which is not what you do in the stock market. I mean, the drops in the Dow Jones, the S&P 500 were really a reflection of people not being smart with their money, which causes the thing to go down. It really is not, and he's kind of reversed himself, but I do agree with Ben on a lot of things he says about how the president shouldn't have that much power, and how to just unilaterally apply the tariffs, and that should be left to the Congress. And that is a really good point, honestly. I think that the president needs to have way less power than he does, and to some degree, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have helped a lot with that. Doge decentralized a lot of power from the executive branch, but but Donald Trump has done things that have contributed to that. I mean, really, almost every president since it really started back with Woodrow Wilson, whose philosophy was that the president should try to centralize as much power into the office of the president as possible and become as big as possible. And then FDR during the Great Depression, doing all sorts of government intervention that arguably prevented us from recovering from the Great Depression. A lot of people say, oh, he saved us from the Great Depression. That does not seem to be the case. If anything, like any one thing pulled us out of the Great Depression, unfortunately, it was the industrialization that all happened under World War II, where everything was centered around that. Now, not saying that that means World War II was a good thing. They could have we could have just industrialized around other things, I mean, but FDR really didn't. I really have yet to see evidence that what he did actually helped. And then there's also speaking of power in the president, there's the question of executive orders. He signs way too many executive orders, but even though I really do like a lot of them, I think a lot of his executive orders need to be passed at the congressional level. I like a lot of the things that he's doing, like the banning of men and women's sports. But the problem with that is, as soon as a Democrat takes over, they'd be like, "Oh no, men can be in women's sports." And the thing is, that's what's been happening. A bunch of Trump's executive orders have just been overturning the 5 million executive orders that Joe Biden passed. And a lot of his were overturning the ones that Donald Trump passed. A lot of his were overturning the ones that Obama passed. It really seemed to have started with Obama. I've heard from people like Ben Shapiro that that President Bush was also not great in this department. I need to research that further, but it just goes to show that it is a bipartisan issue. The federal government, especially the executive branch, is becoming too powerful, and in some ways Trump is helping that, and in some ways he isn't. And there is a specific one that's really interesting. AI, saying that AI can't be any like state laws or AI, like it all needs to be under one framework. Normally these things I think should be left to the states, but before I get into that, I need to kind of explain a concept that I learned in my American Heritage class at BYU. So there's kind of two different forms of liberty. There's negative liberty, which is the things that the government cannot do, and there are positive liberties, things that the government can do to preserve the rights of the people. And I think, especially since FDR, we have gone way too far towards the positive liberties, to the point where it's infringing upon the liberty of the people. I see this as a negative liberty, just saying that, hey, we're not going to stifle the growth of AI. We're going to let it grow by having one framework for the nation. And it's really important because we really need to deregulate in order to win the AI race against China. I know there's arguments saying, oh, if we don't be careful, AI is going to destroy the world. Well, sure, but that argument can be made. But no matter how much you make that argument, China is going to go headlong into it. And they're always going to pay way less attention to the ethics than we are. And they already do some really, really sketchy stuff in the realms of like science, like experimentation. I've heard of them putting like human stem cells in monkeys or something. I don't know if that's true, but China is not an ethical country. It's a communist dictatorship. They're not going to worry about AI taking over the world, honestly. And if it's either, here's how I see it. Either we develop our AI faster than China and run the risk of an AI takeover, or we let China go full steam ahead and beat us, and then guarantee a China takeover, and then possibly an AI takeover. And it's really there's really not much to lose and everything to gain by beating China at AI. All right, now we'll go into another thing that I'm not super big a fan of with Trump, and that's his character isn't super great all the time. First of all, the whole Stormy Daniels thing. Now, to be clear, The allegations that Trump did something illegal with Stormy Daniels, that there was no case that impeachment. So they weren't impeaching him over his affair with Stormy Daniels. What they were really impeaching for him for is he paid her hush money, and they were saying he used political campaign funds that were donated to pay that hush money, and that was what the claim was to be illegal. There was really no case there, and even if there was, it had happened too long ago for there to be any legal path for prosecuting him. It really was a witch hunt, like he said. That said, it's still not great that he actually had an affair with an adult film star. I it's kind of disgusting, and I would rather not do that. But I mean, hey, we just got to work with what we've got. Unfortunately, I mean, I think there are some better Republicans for sure, but I take that over Kamala Harris's unrealized gains tax. Anyway, now there's how one last thing. I kind of think of that as I believe it was a man named Morianton in the Book of Mormon, in the Book of Ether specifically, where it said he did justice to his people, but he didn't do justice to himself because of the many whoredoms he committed, is what it says. He spent his time with harlots. I kind of think of it somewhat similar with Donald Trump. If he does good things, then it's good that he's president. It's better than someone who doesn't do good things for the people. But it's still really unfortunate that he doesn't do justice to himself, as the Book of Mormon says. And now that also goes for things he says on social media. Sometimes there's a lot of times where it really isn't a good look for the United States, but I've kind of moved past that feeling lately. I mean, it's hard to complain about the US not having a good look under Trump when Joe Biden just handed Afghanistan to the Taliban on a silver platter, which silver platter was took the form of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of weaponry. I've kind of moved past that, and low key it might actually be part of his strategy. I mean, again, quoting Ben Shapiro, he often says Donald Trump has the unique ability to get his opponents to defend the worst people on planet Earth. And there is a lot of truth to that. I mean, he is a masterclass rage baiter. He can make just about anyone angry, and I almost wonder if that's part of his strategy. If he makes them angry, they're like, oh, we can't support anything that Trump does. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to do something that most people want, and then get them to take the 20 side of 80-20 issues. And I think it is really part of his strategy. And that being said, it's probably not incredibly great. I mean, I just have to laugh at it most of the time. There's not much I can do, and it is pretty hilarious. Not really something worth losing sleep over. Some of the language he uses is kind of crass in it. I wish he wouldn't do that, but yeah, one exception to that is the thing he said about the Reitners. That was just indefensible. I mean, I'm not super broken up about him calling Tim Walz retarded. I mean, the screams were just kind of distracting from the actual fraud that's going on there. But the kind of just the way that he kind of mocked their death a little bit, that was indefensible. I mean, to be fair, there were tweets from Robert Reitner, or Robert, I don't know if that's his first name. If there were tweets from Reitner basically saying when Donald Trump was assassinated, celebrating, which is also pretty gross. So I can't honestly say that I wouldn't be tempted to do the same thing, haha in your face. I would hope that I wouldn't actually go through with it, but I can understand the temptation, but that doesn't make it defensible. It really is just awful. Now, enough about Donald Trump. Now there is also the rest needs to be explained in kind of these Groyper adjacent movements, and also the Groyper movement proper, which is founded by a guy named Nick Fuentes. He is terrible. Nick Fuentes is a pretty bad person. He, like, just imagine, just take everything, like literally everything that the left says about Donald Trump and Trump supporters, racist, bigot, racist, Islamophobic, sexist, and just on like pro Nazi, just all the things that they say about Donald Trump. That is what Nick Fuentes is, and ironically enough, that is he ends up just that just ends up making him essentially the same thing as the woke left, but he just likes a different color skin. I know people like there was a certain a podcaster named Liberal Hive Mind who was saying that people who spoke out against Groyper adjacent movies, he was calling them the woke right. But really, Nick Fuentes and his supporters and all these like anti-Israel supporters, I think those would be more properly called the woke left. Like, he just likes different skin colors and Y chromosomes. Like, take any critical race theory piece and swap the words black, brown, or people of color with white, and swap man with woman, and you do that to critical race theory or any like critical theory or any of these like left-wing DEI cult books, and you just get Nick Fuentes. Now, and if you do the opposite, do that to Nick Fuentes, and you just get critical race theory. Like, they're literally the same thing. They're just different preferences, honestly. Now, there's also these Groyper adjacent movements, and kind of this anti-Israel movement, and it's kind of part of a larger movement on the right. This kind of pseudo-American first movement where if we interact with any country in any way, it's America last and not America first. And there's a really horseshoe theory with the far left where they kind of become one and the same. I mean, you see like you see that you see like these like Tucker Carlson fanboys, they're asking like, oh, how many shekels is your check worth if you say anything like mildly positive about Israel, or if you or they say, oh, 7,000 shekels, but they completely ignore just his buttering up of the Qatari prime minister. Like, you see his interview with the Qatari PM, he wasn't really like asking a question. He's like, some Americans, especially Trump supporters, say you're terrible. Explain why you're not terrible. And just totally just like rolling out a red carpet for him in front of the American people. And they say like, oh, how many shekels? As if he's totally not getting any Qatari rials for that. I kind of say that jokingly. I don't really have much evidence for that, but there's honestly more evidence for that than there is evidence for than there is for Israel paying off everybody. And Qatar is really warm to terrorism, which is really the worst part about this. It's they pretend to be our ally in fighting terrorism, but they literally donate billions of dollars to Hamas and also to high-end universities like Harvard or these other universities where there were all these anti-Jew riots. Columbia was the other big one that the administrations of the schools really didn't do anything to stop, and even supported to some degree, until Donald Trump says, stop it or he will take away your federal funding. It really is kind of bizarre that people are so warm to Qatar, and then you'll see the same people saying like Islam is like the Antichrist and Islam is what is going to destroy America, and then they watch Tucker Carlson just like essentially give a verbal butt massage to the Qatari prime minister, who is very in favor of radical Islam in his own country and all over the world. Then now we get to the other big player, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who essentially tried to piggyback off the MAGA movement and tried to start her own. She was all complaining about Donald Trump and Epstein, and saying, oh, he's obviously in the files and he's covering it up. Well, now here's my question for her. If you were there this whole time and you knew about this, why didn't you bring this to light before? Why did you accept Donald Trump's endorsement before? Why are you just now speaking about this? And to the other people who are saying, oh, it's Trump is protecting people in the Epstein files, you had access to those throughout the entire Joe Biden presidency. You could have done that any time. And if Trump really is in the files, then there must be a large amount of Democrats either in it or complicit. Otherwise, they would have released it during the Biden presidency as a weapon against Trump. I mean, come on, you know that they literally pulled both of his impeachments. Well, maybe not the first one, but the second one, they just pulled that out of thin air, out of nothing. So if there was actually something there and it wouldn't get them in trouble, they totally would have pulled that out on him. And also, she made all these claims about, like, oh, Jewish space lasers. Yeah, she's kind of a nut. But you know who's a even bigger nut? Candace Owens. Candace Owens is kind of another growing voice in kind of this this larger, like, anti-Israel Groyper movement, except she with a small dose of schizophrenia. I'm not sure how lucid she is. I mean, she was recently claiming that Charlie Kirk was killed by the Polish underground Mormon Jew bees or some nonsense, and then went on to say that it was Donald Trump and Erica Kirk was in it. And now there's all these people saying, oh yeah, Erica Kirk totally isn't great. It's honestly kind of disgusting the way these people, especially Candace Owens, are really profiteering off of Charlie Kirk's death. And that's what bothers me about this whole movement. They're not trying to expose the truth about Israel and about the murder of Charlie Kirk as they say they are. They're just trying to make profit off of it. Now, if you there are questions about the murder of Charlie Kirk that we didn't get the full story, and if you have some doubts about it, like, that's something I'm perfectly willing to discuss. But the fact that they're providing no evidence, the only receipts that Candace Owens has provided, as far as I'm aware, as proof of her knowledge about Charlie Kirk, are just a long unhinged string of texts she sent to her sister that her sister didn't respond to. Probably because she's like, my sister is absolutely insane. But yeah, that's all it really is. Especially when you have people like last person involved in stuff with, like, Steve Bannon, who he's like, oh, I know the truth. I know that Trump is instigating the Epstein files. And then they release the files, and then Steve Bannon is like one of the guys who's actually implicated in it. See, I have a really hard time trusting these people to say, I know the truth, only I know the truth, when they do all this question dodging and they don't really provide much evidence for their claims. All right, so that is kind of a general framework for my political views and for in the context of the world as we know it now. And so that's kind of a good framework to refer back to, and if you're wondering kind of what I believe. We're going to get to some current events, but before we do that, for those of you who've been following this channel for a little while, you've probably seen that I'm working on a website called Apocrypha Library, where people can read apocryphal writings for free. Right now, I'm in the process of moving that over to a website called Lovable, which is an AI powered website builder, and you only get so many credits per day, and it's taking a lot of credits, and because of the credit limit, it's taking longer than I would have hoped to move it over. But there is something you can do to help. I'm gonna put my referral code in the description of this video. If you follow that link and sign up for Lovable, you can get 10 free credits, and once you publish your first website, I will also get 10 credits. So if you want to help me move that work forward, go ahead and do that. Again, the referral code is in the description. Now, onto events that we haven't covered, onto events that weren't like covered in that kind of that background, more recent events. So apparently, in the strikes that were made on Venezuela, Maduro was captured. At first, it was just something Donald Trump said. There was no confirmation until later news sites confirmed that they saw Maduro actually in New York, which is pretty big news. I mean, we kind of just like took over Venezuela. Trump says that the U.S. will kind of run Venezuela until a new leader is put in place. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people on the left and on the right upset about this. I'm gonna make a few calls right now. There's going to be a bunch of leftists who are saying, "Oh, Donald Trump is gone crazy. He's taking over brown people countries because he hates brown people." No, that's not what's happening here. You see, Venezuela is really just Spanish-speaking Russia. Like, it's another communist dictatorship, and such is evidenced by the reactions of actual Venezuelans to this news. According to CNN, they as this happened, people were dancing, waving flags, and cheering liberty. And as this article says later, even some people who were some of the people were kind of heartbroken to see their own country bombed, but they did admit and say, well, this might be what it takes, because Venezuela is a communist dictatorship. And I'll pull up a video here. We can see people cheering about this. You can see all these people cheering. They're wearing Venezuelan flags. You see, Maria Corina is actually one of the kind of the opposition forces for against Maduro in their phony elections that always end up having Maduro winning. See, they technically have elections. It's like Russia. They technically have elections, but they're so rigged toward the people in power. And notice they also have American flags. These people are really happy with what Donald Trump is doing right now. Hold on, I gotta find the video.
If I could call myself a champion, House Targaryen.
Refer
Aha. There you are.
to as Doral, Doral, outside of Miami. This is a place where you have a lot of Venezuelans. And gathering in this spot, you can certainly see that just by all the flags that folks are carrying, wearing around them. They have hats on. They have U.S. and Venezuelan flags. They were chanting just a short time ago, Libertad, liberty. And it's not just Venezuelans who are out here. We've seen Cubans, Nicaraguans, others hoping that perhaps what has happened today in Venezuela could happen in other countries. But you have a flood of emotion. Let me take you through the crowd here. Carlos, we can try to work through and get a sense of
So as you can see, this is something that not just Venezuelans, but Cubans and Nicaraguans and people from all these other really, really terribly governed South American countries are really, really excited about. Like, people say, you'll have people saying, oh, Trump hates brown people, he's going after the brown peoples, but all of the brown peoples, as they say, are in favor of this. Like, this is a good thing. The CNN article here says that many people said that now that this could be their opportunity to return home to their home country, not just from America, but people living in Spain and other countries too. Like, this is a good thing. Like, you'll see, like, almost all of the Hispanic people who are against Donald Trump, a lot of them are people who were born and raised in America. And a lot of the ones who are for Trump and for the Republican Party against socialism are the people who actually grew up in socialist and communist dictatorships like Cuba and Venezuela. Like, this is not an anti-brown people. This is a pro-brown people thing, no matter what people on the left will tell you. And I did all these people from Venezuela and Cuba and all these other South American countries, I think they have every right to be excited, and good reason to be excited about this. It really is an overall good thing. There's going to be a lot of people saying, oh, well, it's not the US's job to be the international police and to enforce international law for everyone. But this is really a national security issue. At least that's how I see it. This is how I see the loaning of the money to Argentina as well. If we can orient South America away from socialism and communism and being pro-Russia and orient them toward Western values, then the things will look a lot better for us. I mean, where did Russia put all the missiles they aimed at the United States? They put them in Cuba. If Cuba and Venezuela are no longer Russian puppets, then we will be a whole lot safer. And the Venezuelan citizens and the Cuban citizens will be a whole lot safer. And just everyone in South America will be so much safer. Not to mention, where was most of Maduro's money coming from? It was oil, selling the oil to Iran now and China. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the US, oh, it's the oil. They always have to go after the oil. They don't care about democracy. They just care about the oil. Well, the thing is, China needs that oil. Their AI programs, and AI programs in general, take a lot of power. And I mean a lot of power. And cutting them off from that source is going to really hinder their progress. And also if we work out a deal with whoever the future leader of Venezuela ends up being, then that'll be a lot of cheap gas and oil for us. I mean, after those tankers were seized, and also just because of Trump's deregulation on gas and oil in general, because of drill baby drill, gas prices have gone down really, really far, like pre-COVID levels even. I know Ben Shapiro has made some really good points about how when people talk about affordability, what they're thinking about is not actually he talks about people wanting reduction of inflation. What people actually want and people have in mind is pre-COVID prices, and that's pretty unrealistic, which I think that is true in general. But it's happening with gas, and that can continue to happen if we work out a good deal with whoever becomes the future president of Venezuela. All right, now onto another onto another big event that's taking the world by storm, and that is the advent of the rise to fame of Nick Shirley, who uncovered hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud in Somali daycares and healthcare centers in a matter of a few hours. I watched the video. It really is pretty incredible. And I've heard, like, I've seen a little, like, news sites trying to discredit him. Like, there was one trying to, like, associate him with like, calling Muslims demons or something. It doesn't seem to hold much water. And besides, the things he showed really, even if those are all true, the things he showed really trump all of that. I mean, you see him going like there's no kids at these daycares, and then he even at one point in the video he even asks a local like, "Hey, like, have you ever seen any kids come in and out of here?" And he's like, "No, I've lived here since 2017. That's all. That's like 9 years now. I was thinking, oh, that's just a few years. No, that's 9 years now." And he said I have not seen a single child or a person come in and out of there. I've seen one person smoking outside, and that's about it. And of course, that's the famous Quality Learning Center, supposed to say Quality Learning Center, presumably, but they couldn't even spell the word right, even though it's a children's education place, which it's pretty astonishing. And then just also showing the papers that there were sometimes even like up to 14 of these different facilities listed at the same address. It's pretty amazing, and just their reactions, like saying no kids here. And he was just even when he just asked like, I want to put my son in this daycare, he's like, nope, you can't do that. No, this is not a Joey place. One of them says. And this isn't like an anti-Somali statement. This isn't an Islamophobic thing. This is real fraud going on right here that a large percentage of Somali immigrants are involved with. Obviously, not every Somali immigrant is in on it, but it does seem that almost every Somali in this area of Minnesota is in fact a part of it. And this really needs to be stopped. I mean, if anything, for the Somali people who really actually want to make something of themselves in the country, like this I mean, you hear people say, oh, the biggest victim, especially Zoran Mamdani, the biggest victims of 9/11 were the Muslims who people gave mean looks to. And to the most part, like it's a pretty weak argument considering people literally died. But there is a real I guess anti-Somali bigotry growing on the right, in very very small sections. Or most people will say it's not just about Somalis. It's not about Somalis in general. It's about the ones in the fraud. Now it is giving rise to it is giving a talking point to people like Nick Fuentes saying, "Oh, look at how bad black people are," and this is really, if this really needs to be stopped for their sakes as well as the taxpayers' sake. I mean, as well as people who immigrate here, who from all countries of all races, who want to make something of their lives, and now all that money that could have been going to help people who really need it is now going to fill Ilhan Omar's pockets and to fill al-Shabaab's pockets in Somalia. Like, it honestly is pretty disgusting. And another really cool thing about Nick Shirley, he is a Latter-day Saint. Yes, Nick Shirley is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is really, really awesome. It's so nice to see a member of the church be just your average guy who's a member of the church, a recently returned missionary too, to be put in such positive light. I mean, the church has got some, we'll say, negative attention lately. I mean, we had first we had Charlie Kirk and killed at UVU, which is really is a school a lot of people go to if they don't get into BYU. Not dissing on anyone who couldn't get into BYU or people who go to UVU. That's just how it is. And naturally, a lot of people are saying, oh, it was the Mormons. A lot of these conspiracy theorists are saying, oh, it was the Mormons. Or in Candace Owens' case, it was the Polish underground Mormon Jew beekeeper cult or whatever nonsense she said. And then after that, President Nelson died not long after. And then not long after that, the Michigan shooting happened. And it really has been, I guess, hard as a Latter-day Saint to see all this. So this is really a real breath of fresh air, honestly, as a Latter-day Saint. Now, speaking of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and news, recently a temple was announced in Maine, and it wasn't in General Conference. I mean, for as long as I can remember, temples were only really announced in General Conference, but this last General Conference, no temples were announced. I mean, President Oaks basically said that that we're not going to announce any right now and focus on the ones that are under construction. And then a few months later, they announced a temple in Maine just on the church news site. And this isn't unprecedented. I mean, it is kind of unprecedented, but this kind of change has happened before. I mean, I remember when I was younger, they would list all of the general authority 70s in the sustaining, and it would take like 3 times as long. But now they say, like, we've published a list of general authority 70s on the church news website, and now all in favor of sustaining them do so by the uplifted hand. And it really helps kind of streamline General Conference, have it more focused on the messages being taught. And I think this is pretty standard, honestly, but with something as big as temples, it is also surprising. All right, now that is all for church news. Now there's one more topic I would like to cover, and that is Marvel. Avengers Doomsday is coming in about a year now, and there's kind of some general general feelings toward Marvel. Is there was a period where Marvel went pretty woke along with everything else. From what I've heard, you kind of saw it with She-Hulk. I haven't actually watched that one yet. I haven't really had much motivation to. I've heard it's not incredibly relevant to the plot, though this might change with Hulk being in Brand New Day. I think you saw it a lot with you saw it a little bit in Doctor Strange 2. You saw it quite a bit with Eternals, which I think is an underrated movie, but also I can see why people don't like it. They could have done a lot better with the concept with the movie. But anyway, and just like, oh look, gay Muslim couple, even though that's kind of an oxymoron. And you can kind of see, I think it really came to a peak in Agatha All Along, which is really the only Marvel production that I genuinely regret watching. It was incredibly well. It was like, oh, this kid was a practicing Jew, but you know what's cooler? Gay person with witchcraft. Like, it really felt, this isn't anything against gay people, but like, it just really felt like they're like, oh, look how transgressive we are against Christianity, Judeo-Christianity. And it besides that, it was also just written really poorly. It started off really strong, but then kind of petered out. The plot kind of fell flat. Anyway, enough on that tangent. But we really started to see a new direction with Fantastic Four First Steps. It was honestly one of the best Marvel movies I've seen, and one of the most pro-life, probably the most pro-life Marvel movie out there. I mean, you had Reed and Sue Richards, who could have given up their child to save the entire planet. They're like, no, we're just gonna stop this guy. This is our child. And they just made the scene where he's born just so beautiful, and it really just felt like so pro-life and also like just pro-fatherhood too. I mean, you have Reed Richards trying to be a good dad amidst his work and amidst saving the world, and you also kind of see the Thing and the Human Torch kind of as having doing those uncle figures, those support masculine figures in the family. It really was a breath of fresh air, and then it's the most direct teaser we've gotten into Doomsday, with Doctor Doom appearing at the end. And then not too long ago, they released this trailer. always on the hour. Months, days, hours, minutes, seconds. I'll get to that a little bit more. But I mean, as you can see, there really seems to be a theme of fatherhood going on. Like, first you have Reed Richards being a father and saving his child. Then you have Steve, who went to go live with Peggy Carter in the past, and he had a child. Now you guys got to watch this one.
Father, all my life I have answered every call to honor, duty, to war. But now fate has given me something I never sought. A child, a life untouched by the storm. Lend me the strength of the old fathers, so that I may fight once more, defeat one more enemy, and return home to her, not as a warrior, but as warmth, to teach her not battle, but stillness, the kind I never knew. Please, Father, heed my words.
Now it shows again. I need to look at the map a little bit more, but notice how it's like always does it right on the hour. And that could just be convenience, but I feel like that could give us a... But I feel like that could give us a pretty good indication of when the next one is actually coming. Now, again, the theme of fatherhood here. Like, I mean, I watched Thor: Love and Thunder. I think it's a little overhated. Like, I can kind of see what people are saying. Like, Thor was just Thor Ragnarok was absolutely amazing and absolutely hilarious, and he kind of leaned into the humor just a little bit too much. And even Chris Hemsworth has said, like, yeah, like I think Thor should have been way more serious in that movie, and it wasn't like directed as well as it could have been. There could have been a lot more delivery. Also, just with Korg, like, there's like, oh, by the way, Korg is actually gay, which the biggest problem with that for me is that they completely retcon like one of the funniest jokes in Thor Ragnarok, where he's like, he's talking about the he's like, I tried to start a revolution, but the only people who showed up were me mum, me dad, and me sister's boyfriend, who I hate. And then they're like, okay, we're just gonna imply that now all of the Cronins are male, by the way. It really they kind of like just inserted like the DEI agenda just into there, and it really kind of that's the big problem, is it kind of like breaks up the plot, and like it just kind of like pours cold water on the excitement of the movie. And that's really kind of my biggest complaint about it. But I think it was pretty underrated, and I think they're really redeeming the Thor franchise with him in Doomsday and this theme of fatherhood. And also, Love is played by Chris Hemsworth's daughter, which is absolutely legendary. Honestly, it's honestly so cool. Like, the father-daughter acting is super awesome. I can't wait to see more of it. And I think it's also, we're going to see Love probably part of, there's a lot of talk about a potential Young Avengers team. There were some Young Avengers comics. They're thinking, it's seeming that they seem to be setting that up, like the post-credit scene of the Marvels. One of them shows Kamala Khan. No, not Kamala Khan. Showing up, basically like recruiting Kate Bishop, and she mentions Cassie Lang. I think that it would make sense for Love to be also part of these young Avengers. Riri Williams also seems to tie into that, especially after Marvel Zombies. But yeah, it's and even then, like with Cassie Lang too, like that's like also like really pro fatherhood. The whole Ant-Man franchise is like really pro fatherhood, honestly, and I think Marvel really is healing and heading toward a positive direction with showing that not all masculinity is bad and toxic. There is such a thing as good masculinity, and it's a necessity in this world. Now, onto other things that they haven't released trailers, that mainly fights that I'm super hyped to see. Um, Simu Liu has said that he is going to act in a face-off involving a lot of the X-Men, mentioning Magneto specifically, which Shang-Chi versus Magneto is something I would absolutely love to see. I mean, Shang-Chi is honestly one of my favorite Marvel movies, and I've been dying for literally anything else with Shang-Chi to happen. And this is honestly really, really exciting. And also the question Magneto. Obviously, Magneto is going to try to manipulate his rings with his metal manipulation. The question is, will it work? And if so, how well will it work? I mean, Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner had no idea about what the about like what was going on with the rings, like where they came from, exactly what they were made of. They were trying to figure it out. You could see in the post-credit scenes. It honestly is something that's really exciting to see. Now, there's also going to be the new old Avengers versus the new Avengers. And by that I mean the Avengers proper versus the Thunderbolts. I mean, because we see in you see DeFontaine declared the Thunderbolts the new Avengers, and then you can kind of see in a post-credit scene that in Brave New World you could see that near the end he I was thinking Anthony Mackie, that's the actor. Sam Wilson was essentially like more open to the idea of restarting the Avengers, like President Ross had asked him to. And I think it's and obviously it's probably going to be there's probably going to be Ant-Man, and obviously Sam Wilson, and Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, is almost certainly going to be there. Now, I don't think we're going to see Thor there, even though he's one of the last remaining original Avengers. I think he's going to have his own arc, especially after this trailer. I think, and especially since Loki is confirmed, I think it's going to tie directly into Loki. My theory is that Doctor Doom, in order to do this multiversal travel that he's going to have to do, that's going to end up bringing everyone together, it's he's going to have to infiltrate the TVA somehow, and somehow like infiltrate it. And Loki will be thinking, I know, well, who do I go to? I'm gonna go to Thor from the sacred timeline, who I could always count on. And I mean, especially after I think the other thing that made Thor Love and Thunder not as good, it's the only movie where Loki hasn't died and then later in future movies turned out to be still alive. And so I feel like that would kind of make up for that, especially with how they're trying to kind of redeem the Thor franchise anyway. Also, I think the infiltration of the TVA is kind of the only way they're going to be able to write Kang out of the story. Like, he was supposed to be the big bad, but he obviously assaulted someone, and then Disney cut ties with him, and rightfully so, which is really is a shame because he was a phenomenal actor, like one of the best. Why do good actors have to do terrible things? I don't want to think about the answer to that right now. Anyway, yeah, so I think it'll be either some like Doctor Doom probably killing them off, or maybe they mentioned that they B-22 mentioned to Mobius that they were hunting for his variants. Perhaps there's something going on. Maybe they'll mention that they found the Council of the Kangs. We'll just have to see what happens there. And lastly, I think the most obvious one that's going to happen, the Thunderbolts versus the Fantastic Four. After the post-credit scene for Thunderbolts, they go, they're like, hey, we're picking something up that's coming here. And then it shows the Fantastic Four ship. Like, there's going to be a fight there until we really see, until they realize they're on the same side against Doctor Doom. Also, one thing I forgot to mention about the Avengers versus the Thunderbolts, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic between Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. Just like seeing the two interact, like, and have to be on opposing teams. I feel like just them specifically is going to be like a very, very civil Captain America Civil War-esque vibe going on, which is really going to be exciting. And lastly, for Doomsday, Avengers Endgame is actually being re-released in theaters sometime this year, shortly before Doomsday. I've seen some rumors that have said that we're getting another post-credit scene that's going to tie directly into Doomsday. I can see that happening. It wouldn't surprise me. It's not confirmed yet, but I think it probably is going to happen. Now, lastly, something coming up a little bit sooner, Spider-Man Brand New Day. So for those of you who aren't familiar, some details have been released about the plot. So what we know so far is that Spider-Man, Punisher, and the Hulk are all going to be fighting against each other, essentially, for a lot of the movie until they figure out who the big bad is. And even with the Punisher being a very R-rated character, I still think they can manage to make this movie PG-13. I mean, you look at what? Not right now. I'm making a video. I'm almost done though. I still think they can make this movie PG-13. I mean, you look at the Hulk and Spider-Man, they're not exactly gun users. Like, they don't need guns, they don't use guns, and it would be totally lore accurate in order for if we had like 99% of gunfire coming from Frank Castle. If you've seen, I've only seen some of the original Daredevil series. I haven't seen the Punisher series yet, but I mean, people thought he was an army, but he was really just one guy. And so I think they can still manage it. And you also look at Winter Soldier. Like, Winter Soldier was very bloody, very violent, lot of gunfire for a PG-13 movie, and they still got away with PG-13. I think that I really think with Winter Soldier, I think they can still pull it off. Now, there is one question remaining about, okay, it's like, if they're going to be fighting until they send the big bad, where does Venom come into the picture? Like, that was the only, like, foreshadowing we got in Brand New Day, really. I mean, in No Way Home. We had the Venom symbiote get left behind as Eddie Brock Jr. was sent back to his universe. Now, I don't think it's going to be Tom Hardy's Venom. I mean, it's really interesting that they released Venom Last Dance after No Way Home, after they had tied everything in. I haven't seen the Venom trilogy yet. I don't know if they acknowledge that in Venom Last Dance. I don't know if they have any plans to bring that in the future, but I have read. I need to read the comics, man. There's so much lore there. But in the comics, Flash Thompson gets recruited into the military and gets his legs blown off by a landmine, and they recruit him. Then Shield recruits him as a project where they bond him with the symbiote. He gets his legs back and actually has a hero arc. And I think this is the route they're going to go, because honestly, they're really, if no one remembers who Peter Parker is anymore after No Way Home, there really isn't much reason for Flash to be in the movie, and yet his actor is confirmed to return. So I think this is probably going to be the route they go. Now, here is my theory about the interaction, why they're actually going to be fighting in the first place, and it does involve Venom. So I think that Hulk and you're gonna see Venom bond with Flash or whoever else, and Hulk and Frank Castle are they're gonna mistake Venom for Spider-Man, just like they did in Spider-Man 3. Not them specifically, but everyone else. And Bruce Banner will probably be like, this is like something alien, possibly something gamma. I am the most qualified person to help. This person is a victim, and I need to help them. I mean, there's a lot of theories that Hulk is going to go back to Savage Hulk rather than saying Smart Hulk. I have yet to see much evidence for that, but I think it's more likely that you have Smart Hulk trying to help. They think he's trying to help Spider-Man, but it's really Venom. And then you're going to have Frank Castle just be like, I'm going to freaking kill this guy. Like, he's doing too much bad. I'm going to kill him very bloodily. and then they're going to eventually figure out who the big bad is. I think it's going to be Kingpin. I really think it is going to be Kingpin, because I haven't watched Daredevil Born Again yet. But I've read just an article just today that apparently so obviously Kingpin is the mayor of New York. That happens near the beginning. That's like kind of the main premise of the series. And he like takes legal action against vigilantes. And he mentions a skull-toting guy, a skull-chested gun-toting. I can't remember exactly what he said. That's obviously Punisher. He mentions Daredevil specifically as his arch nemesis. He also mentions Spider-Man specifically, which is really, really interesting, especially because you have Kingpin Kingpin as the main villain in Spider-Verse 1, and he was originally a Spider-Man villain until he became Daredevil's arch nemesis in the comics. I really think that that's going to be the main link between the Defender saga that was kind of going on in the background on ABC and Netflix, and the greater MCU, and also the associate with Daredevil appearing in Spider-Man. Like, the connections, they just keep growing and growing and growing. Now, on one last thing, well, not one last thing, there's also Sadie Sink, who is confirmed to be playing an unknown role in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And originally, a lot of people were saying, oh, well, this is probably going to be Gwen Stacy. She does look like she could play Gwen Stacy. But rumors more recently are saying that she is going to be Jean Grey. Not not the same Jean Grey as in the X-Men movies. In fact, I don't think she's even going to be in... she's not even confirmed to be in Doomsday. But Earth 1 Quintuple Nine's Jean Grey. And this does kind of follow the pattern of like introducing mutants like Namor and Miss Marvel as they kind of go on, and then introducing the original X-Men in alternate universes. Like, this would be like the next step forward. And also Captain America Brand New World mentioned adamantium. The director said this is going to tie into Wolverine's origin in the MCU, and I think it's going to be something kind of like that, but bigger with Sadie Sink. That makes the most sense to me. Now, lastly for Spider-Man is ties into the Spider-Verse and Secret Wars. There's a video. Well, first before that, probably about several months ago, Andrew Garfield, best Spider-Man by the way, he was asked basically like if he thought if he would be open to be doing an Amazing Spider-Man 3, and he said, yeah, I would love to do that, but it'd have to be something really, really weird, is what he said. And then a couple weeks after I saw this video, this was still a while ago.
I was legend.
Here's my theory. I'm going to probably see you in Secret Wars.
I was legend. I love seeing you, man.
Thanks, man. Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you too.
I cannot wait to see you in Secret Wars.
Thank you.
That face though, that face. And this is supported by an article I saw a while ago. This is this is supported by an article I read later that essentially said like Andrew Garfield was asked if he was going to be in Avengers Doomsday. And he said no, absolutely not, absolutely unequivocally freaking no, but he didn't say freaking. And and then he was asked, okay, well, what about Secret Wars? Well, I can't say anything, but we'll have to see. Like, I mean, bro's not doing a good job at hiding it, but then again, such direct questions, how do you hide it at that point? I think he's going to be in Secret Wars. Also, I think Spider-Verse is going to be brought into the MCU in Secret Wars. And the reason for that being, well, there's a few reasons. For one, Kingpin in as main villain of Spider-Verse, all the Spider-Man Daredevil connections, that seems pretty logical. And also I've heard that there is a mention of an Officer Morales in Born Again, and he is a black police officer. Also in No Way Home, Electro is like, do you think that there will be a black Spider-Man? It seemed to be pretty clear foreshadowing, but the biggest evidence for me is that one of the like higher ups at Sony, like who's in charge of the Spider-Verse movies, he specifically went to Marvel and told them, do not use Spider-Verse for the MCU until Spider-Verse 3 is finished. Which, the fact that they would even do that seems to me that they're counting on it. Like, not just thinking it'll happen, that they're counting on it. And not to mention, I've read that in the Secret Wars comics, Miles Morales actually ends up permanently in Earth 616, the prime Marvel universe, to stay in the Secret Wars Marvel comics. So seeing Andrew Garfield and make a return and Miles Morales come into play, like, and there seems to be like a lot of ties between Secret Wars and this new Spider-Man movie coming out. Everything seems like it's all coming together. All right, well, that's it for this first episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. I will try to be here next Saturday. I'll be starting school, so we'll see. And hope you all have a good day. Peace.